Well, hello everybody. This is Jermaine Alberti, the Executive Director of Pathways to Promise, and I am so excited to be with Dr. Paula Dobbs-Wiggins, the recipient
Yes,
of our 2021 Mental Health Champion Award. And so glad to see you. I'm so glad to see you.
delighted to be here and was very, very pleased and blessed to receive this gorgeous award. I was honored and as I shared with you, it's a beautiful award from a beautiful organization. So thank you very, very much.
Well, you are welcome. Pathways has been around since 1987. It was founded in St. Louis by 14 denominations, a couple of Jewish organizations, as well as other mental health organizations. And their whole goal was to create resources for these different denominations to decrease stigma and to increase mental health literacy. So for 30 years, Pathways to Promise has been making a difference. And I'm so excited that 5 years ago, we start this process of thinking of how to re-envision ourselves and how to have greater impact. And we've been doing that through the companionship program, which is a model that we're introducing in Texas and San Antonio and Dallas. And so we, about 3 years ago, started thinking about how do we honor folks that are doing the work in community. And we heard about your work, and we just thought we needed to recognize the work that you have done. And so, my first question was, what brought you into the work of mental health ministry?
Well, I tell you, it's I think I shared in my plenary as I was experiencing my final years of college and seeking to understand what my next steps would be. I actually had two paths that were put before me. One going into medicine, and I had applied to medical school, but in that process, I also received a call to ministry. And so I guess from the very beginning, I always recognized health, both physical and emotional health, as a part of ministry, that part of helping persons to reach their full God given potential meant also helping them to uh, be at their best potential physically, emotionally, as well as spiritually. So I kind of went in with that. But in terms of actually choosing psychiatry as a specialty, I was primarily influenced by a relationship with a fellow student and later colleague in medical school, an African American woman who was frankly just brilliant. She had come to medical school with a PhD in molecular biology or something, and was now in medical school and doing extremely well, and a person of great faith, and a person that I just felt a great deal of closeness to. We often studied together. We went to worship together every Sunday morning, and after worship, we would actually study before going to church. Go to church, and then afterwards treat ourselves to a wonderful meal. And during the time that we were in medical school, she developed what I later learned to be a major depressive episode. And in that context, I watched her slowly begin to slow down, um, lose interest in things, have difficulty thinking through things, just basically seeing my friend pulling back and losing touch with herself. And it even got to a point, and this is the important part of the story for me, that she started losing interest even in going to church.
Mm.
You know, she would get, but she was late for our what had always been our 6:30 or 7 a.m. study session. She started getting there later and later and later. And at the point that we would normally be transitioning to go to church, she just didn't feel like going that week, and I saw this develop over several weeks. And I never will forget her saying to me one day, as I was trying to coax her into going on and going to church, I said, you always feel better when you go to church. Let's just go. And if we get tired, or you don't feel well, we can always leave. And she said to me, I don't need to go to church because God has turned God's back on me.
Mm.
And I don't blame God for doing it. If I were God, I'd turn my back on me too.
Mm.
And she's just feelings of unworthiness, feelings of self-loathing, feelings that she was no longer worthy of God's love. And the short story is, over the course of time, she was diagnosed with major depressive disorder, received appropriate treatment and therapy. And over the course of that treatment, she found not only did she feel better and regained her interest and was doing well in school again, but she also found that God was right where God had always been before the depression
Mm.
veiled her view of
Mm.
God. And I really think that was the experience that caused me to say, I want to do that. That's something I would like to be able to come alongside people to have that kind of experience of coming back to their wholeness. And indeed, throughout most of my clinical career, I treat a great deal of affective disorders, major depressive disorder, bipolar disorder, anxiety disorder, and have had the opportunity to come alongside many in doing that. So that's why the special I was drawn to it so much.
Wow, what a personal and powerful story. Because
Yeah.
oftentimes in companionship, we talk about sympathy, empathy, and compassion. And
Mm-hmm.
compassion is when we come alongside somebody in the midst of their pain.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it
Yeah.
sounds like
Yeah.
you have been called to do in this practice, is
Mm-hmm.
to come alongside people in the midst of their pain and be
Yeah.
present.
Yes.
There's a lot of people who don't see that connection between faith and medicine. But I love to say, I love when faith and science come together because they're
Right.
not mutually exclusive of the other. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm just so grateful that that experience catapulted you into what you are doing. Um,
Yes. And if I can comment on what you just said, too, when faith and medicine come together, and come when they come alongside each other, as opposed to seeming to be opposing ways of approaching wholeness and health, it's very, very powerful. Another major part of my work, for 20 years, I was a professor of pastoral care at Perkins School of Theology, working with future pastors. And I taught that one of my signature class, as it were, was mental health skills for clergy. And I always felt it was very, very important because clergy are in a unique position often to hear a person's complaints and woes, often for the first time. Many times people will confide in their minister what's happening with them emotionally before they'll go to their doctor, much less a mental health clinician. And so pastors have a unique opportunity to be able to help guide persons to resources, to accompany them in resources, to encourage them, to let them know, oh my goodness, as bad as it may feel right now, there may well be a path to feeling a lot better, you know. And so if you can help clergy know and have some insight and understanding around mental health conditions, you can impact a lot of people for years to come. Yeah.
I love a great segue. I love it because what I want to, at least that second question about, what words would you share with others who would have an interest to, do this work? They are saying, you know what, I see that mental health ministry is needed in faith communities, and but
Mm-hmm.
how do I do this? And so I would love for you to just give maybe some words of wisdom, inspiration to inspire folks to pick up the mantle to do this work because it truly is a calling. It truly is.
Yeah. Well, I would say, um, to the extent that you really want to be about the work of helping people to reach their full God-given potential, I would encourage you to recognize that wholeness for a person is physical, spiritual, and emotional, and that you want to help persons look at all three of those areas and be able to grow. And then I would quickly add, and remember, as clergy, it's not that we have to be personally equipped to do it all. Sometimes God is calling us to be the shepherd to guide the sheep to the resources and be the bridge that helps them communicate with those resources if they don't feel they have the language and skills to do so. We don't have to have all the answers, and we don't have to have the expertise to fix everything. Now you've got me back in the classroom, because this is what I'm usually struggling sometimes with young clergy students who feel that somehow or another they're called to have the answer for everything. No, you're really not. And that's a relief. That's not putting you down at all. That takes that heavy mantle off. So in terms of words of encouragement, you don't have to do it all, but you want to know as much as you can about different areas. You want to build a very complex and sophisticated resource file that you can call upon persons with whom you have built relationship, and you may be actually doing ministry with people in all these different areas of mental health treatment and other kinds of treatment, as you just show interest and recognize the value of their expertise and their various areas, and then help connect them to parishioners along the way. And the mental health or emotional health part of that is a very critical part, because for so many, stigma, lack of resources, lack of insurance, they have been denied because of those issues. The resources that by the grace of God are available and have been developed to help enhance their lives in those ways. So this is the time when you can be the bridge, when you are aware of resources in your community that offer mental health support and care and treatment, perhaps on a sliding scale. Or in other words, when you know that and you can make that available to others, that is really an opportunity to do very rich ministry. And like my colleague, you know, and I, as having told that story about my friend in medical school, I would say she went on to have a tremendous career,
Yes.
and is still practicing now, doing well. And just imagine if she had never gotten treatment,
Yeah. Yeah.
what the world would have lost in her. So, yeah.
I think three powerful words that we need to convey is that recovery is possible.
Oh, yeah.
And it's different for all people, but it is possible. And I think that,
Mhm.
you just gave me a wonderful segue to wrapping up our interview, which is, in Pathways to Promise, our tagline is we connect faith, mental health, and culture. And so, as we're
Mhm.
connecting faith, mental health, and culture, there is a culture shift that as faith leaders, we don't have to know it all, that we
Mhm.
most definitely need to connect and be a bridge to resources in the community, and that
Yeah.
we can be able to minister to the whole person. And so I love
Mhm.
that holistic ministry perspective. Well, my
Yeah.
friends, you have been listening to Dr. Paula share with us just some words of wisdom. And I'm going to be posting on Pathways to Promise website this interview along with the plenary she did for the Pathways to Hope conference.
Oh,
So you'll
okay.
be able to learn more about that great work there. And so once again, congratulations again. our
Thank you.
2021 mental health champion. And so we look
Thank you.
forward to working with you in the near future.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.